You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bawa. Let's begin with the headlines we're tracking at the moment. India and the United States have shared concerns about developments in Bangladesh, particularly over the safety of minorities. This is what the Indian government has said after US President Biden and Prime Minister Modi spoke to each other over the telephone. The Ministry of External Affairs has responded to Bangladesh's allegations of non-cooperation from New Delhi over the opening of gates at the Farakka barrage, which was done without any prior warning. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says that the country would reduce the number of low-wage foreign workers. He added that it was now time for Canadian businesses to invest in their own workers and youth. Apple has announced that Chief Financial Officer Luca Maestri will step down from his role at the start of next year, and Kevin Parekh, Apple's Vice President of Financial Planning and Analysis, will take Maestri's place managing the finances of the now $3 trillion company. A Chinese military surveillance aircraft encroached on Japanese airspace, the first known incursion of its kind, putting the Pacific further on the edge. The Donald Trump and Kamala Harris campaigns are sparring over whether to mute one of the microphones when it's the other person's turn to speak during the pair's scheduled debate next month. Well, our big focus, a few days after returning from Kyiv, Prime Minister Modi spoke with US President Joe Biden and updated him on his visit to Ukraine. Now, Prime Minister Modi shared details on X, mentioning that they also talked about the situation in Bangladesh and stressed the importance of quickly restoring normalcy and ensuring that the safety of Hindus is absolutely paramount. Although our Prime Minister has raised concerns about the safety of Hindus in Bangladesh multiple times since the 8th of August, when Muhammad Yunus actually assumed leadership of the interim government in Dhaka, this was the first instance of the issue being addressed between India and the United States at such a high level. Prime Minister Modi actually initially brought up the matter shortly after Mr. Yunus's inauguration, extending his best wishes and urging him to prioritize the safety and protection of Hindus in Bangladesh. Mr. Modi also highlighted the issue in his Independence Day speech from the Red Fort and during a subsequent phone conversation with Mr. Yunus. Meanwhile, India has trashed reports in Bangladesh that the opening of the Farakka barrage in West Bengal is causing floods in some areas in the neighboring country. In fact, the MEA has said that we have seen fake videos, rumors and fear-mongering to create misunderstanding. This should be firmly countered with facts. These are the words of the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson, Randhir Jaiswal. In fact, last week too, India described as factually incorrect reports in Bangladesh that the flood situation in certain parts of the country has been caused by the opening of a dam on the Gumti River in Tripura. My colleague Mohammed Ghazali is with us. He joins us for a live update at the moment. Ghazali, take us through the latest details.
See, Parma, as you rightly pointed out, even last week as well, the MEA had categorically rejected reports that India was anywhere responsible behind the flood situation in Bangladesh. And India and Bangladesh share a long border. It also has constructed dams in important reservoirs on the India-Bangladesh border in states like Tripura, Bengal, and like last week it was Tripura, which was blamed for that the Indian government had opened some barrage or some water reservoir near the border leading to floods in Bangladesh. This week and yesterday, MEA had to yet again categorically deny any kind of scheme or sort of deliberate attempt to cause floods in Bangladesh by opening the Farakka barrage or not informing their Bangladeshi counterparts before the outflow of the water towards Bangladesh. And the larger context is that since Sheikh Hasina has spread the country, a large sentiment, a growing sentiment is there in Bangladesh that perhaps India was helping Sheikh Hasina or India is a well-wisher of Sheikh Hasina. And that is why, despite not getting political asylum in any of the Western countries, she is still staying in India. And now this particular situation, where the interim government is still trying to expand its feet and take control of the situation in Bangladesh, a flood-like situation has gripped multiple parts of the country, and now some anti-India elements. And we have just seen sort of Facebook, social media post by one of the student leaders who was part of anti-Sheikh Hasina protests of the Kota Star and is now part of Mohammed Yunus's interim government there. And he is also blaming India, that India deliberately allowed the water to move towards Bangladesh into this flood. So MEA or the Indian government is really, they are aware of the situation, and time and again they are debunking this myth by sharing facts that this before the outflow of water to Bangladesh, and perhaps it's a matter also citizens in Bangladeshi authorities were also informed about it.
As always, Ghazali, thank you so much for taking us to the latest developments and also contextualizing the latest details for us. With that, let's turn our attention now to Russia. Well, Russia launched over 200 missiles and drones at Ukraine, resulting in the deaths of 7 people and hitting energy infrastructure across the country, according to Kyiv. Meanwhile, neighboring NATO member Poland reported that a drone likely crossed into its airspace, and the attacks caused widespread power outages and disrupted water supplies in several regions, including parts of Kyiv. Now, officials indicate that the assault, marking 2.5 years since the full-scale invasion, was aimed at power and other vital infrastructure throughout Ukraine. In fact, we have with us international affairs expert Kamaraga with us. Thank you so much, sir, as always, for making time for us on the World 24/7. Sir, how bad are things as per your assessment as we speak?
It's very sad. It's very bad. Flooding is taking place. Then, civilian areas are being targeted also. A large number of innocent people are dying. I think the time has come. International community should call for immediate cessation of hostilities, at least, if not, and ceasefire. That should be, I think, top priority. I believe, the Americans might like to have such as, because one thing is clear, the Ukrainian army can't win this war. That has been proved. And they cannot, also they're finding it difficulty to liberate whatever the areas Russian forces have occupied. That is there also. Large number of Ukrainian troops are deserting from the post. This is what's happening. That's very serious development. And internal situation, we don't know much because emergency-like situation is there, martial law is there. So we don't know much about what is happening, but reports are coming, the people, they want peace, they want settlement of this dispute through negotiations. I don't know how much time will it take because otherwise, people from both sides keep dying, Ukraine has very superior military equipments, but you cannot win a war with only by military equipment.
Absolutely.
There has to be desire, there has to be, spirit of fighting. That the army is losing. That is the major problem which Ukraine is facing at the moment.
In fact, sir, this attack has also prompted Ukrainian officials to now renew Kyiv's pleas for Western weapons and also permission from Ukraine's allies to hit military targets in Russia.
Yes, they have asked yesterday, in fact, because what was happened earlier when Iranians have attacked Israel with missiles and drones. At that time, the Americans and the Britishers and French, I believe, also joined in to prevent Iranian missiles reaching at Israel. So similar situation is now they are asking, now they are asking Americans and Europeans, that they should at least help us prevent Russian missile coming inside the country. But that's a very serious issue. I don't think immediately European would like to have, because that means, the spread of war into other countries also. So therefore, it will take some time. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how the Western countries are responding. Secondly, now situation is hotting up in West Asia.
Yes.
Two-way war would be very expensive for Americans and for Europeans also. And for Europe and America, Iran or this region, Persian Gulf region, is equally important because that is a major source of energy to global, almost 30-40% in this region. Oil and gas come from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, all these countries, and the problem is, the Saudis are also now virtually talking about independent foreign policy, willing to join BRICS, which means accepting the de-dollarization process. All these things are not acceptable to the Americans. Americans are putting pressure on Saudi Arabia not to do these things. But it looks like the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is continuing with his agenda. He's trying to make a balance between America and the West, but his relation with China is growing. His relation with the Russians are also.
As we've seen,
so
yes.
this, but I say this region is equally important. I think frozen peace is at least possible in Ukraine. Frozen peace means like North Korean type of situation. North Korea is still at war with South Korea, but no border clashes or such things are not taking place.
Yes.
So similar situation is possible. This sort of things should be possible because the American, because the army, local army, Ukrainian army is not in a position to fight with the Russian superior weapon systems. No, Russians are using.
Well, we have seen some movements in terms of the Ukrainian army making some gains into the Kursk region, but let's see. Unfortunate times, we're going through unfortunate times lie ahead, certainly hoping a situation is somewhere on the radar. As always, thank you so much, sir, for making time for us and joining us with your valuable perspective. With that, let's turn our attention now to what's happening in Canada. Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced that Canada will be cutting back on the number of temporary foreign workers employers can hire for low-wage jobs. Now, this change is part of the government's effort to manage the rise in temporary immigration that has followed the pandemic. Additionally, there's also talk about potentially reducing the number of permanent residents Canada accepts. But according to local media, the federal government revealed 3 new updates to the temporary foreign worker program during the second day of the cabinet retreat in Halifax. Now, these changes, which are set to take effect on the 26th of September, come after similar adjustments made earlier this year in March as well as over the summer. Well, we have with us immigration expert Rohit Sharma at the moment. Thanks so much, Rohit, for joining us. Now, take us through how badly this is likely to impact Indians, or it's not likely to affect Indians seeking jobs in Canada at the moment.
Yeah, good morning and thank you very much, Parmeshwar. This development, in fact, was coming, and it was not that it is just announced. In fact, strangely, like 2 years back, this ratio of 20%, it was there. Then it was 10%, and now we have increased it to 20% again, 10% again to the total employment force. As regard Indians are concerned, temporary foreign worker, in fact, was making is one of the category that was making quite a quantum of immigration, because otherwise also the immigration programs to Canada are on the comprehensive ranking point system are pretty tough to crack. So people were getting opportunity from the employers there, and they were actually going through this route. So it is definitely an impact on the total number, because they have also reduced the duration of 2 years to 1 year of work visa. So it is too small a period, for a person to convert their status from a temporary foreign worker to a permanent resident of that particular country. So yes, people will start thinking about. But this is also happening, because unfortunately, what was happening is that the migrants who were landing there in Canada, the temporary foreign worker programs, they were also finding that employers were also abusing them from the perspective of giving them salaries on times and misusing their presence there as well. And then also so many consultants across India and across the world also, they have misused this policy of charging huge sum from the employees here and sending them from the perspective of permanent resident visa more than from the perspective of job. So many things were happening that has actually resulted to this cap on the employers from the low wage stream. And so this is how it is. This is how it is placed right now.
Right, but we are aware that this announcement comes after the unemployment rate in Canada was actually at a 30-month high of about 6.4%. But Rohit, like you crucially touched upon this, given the structural inequities between temporary foreign workers and employers and their insufficient access to justice and remedies, like you mentioned, non-payment of salaries on time, reports have highlighted how workers experience a wide range of abuses as well. So in that sense, is it really bad news for Indians seeking low-wage jobs?
In fact, on my honest acknowledgement, it's not that bad as like I will not, be critical of the Canadian government step on this, because the fact is that yes, this program was actually getting very abused because it's not just the employers, who were exploiting the situation of the workers there. The fact is that the people also, who were going from there, they were looking it from the perspective of gaining a permanent residency visa, right? More than just unemployment. So they were landing there in Canada on these particular temporary jobs. And yes, then what happens, once you land up there, then you are totally to the mercy of the employer. Because if he just simply withdraw his offer, then you have no option but to come back. Now
Right.
imagine you have landed in Canada and then you are coming back. Then you are neither here nor there.
Right.
So yes, and also from the perspective of with Canada, having been running through a process, where even the unemployment rate for the youth has increased there. The locals there, were very happy with the Canadian government policy of encouraging so much of immigrants.
Right.
Elections are also coming up. So many things have actually resulted to this particular factor. But yes, I don't think it will rather help, to also curb the kind of illegal migration that was happening across India also to Canada.
Well, as always, Rohit, thanks so much for joining us on the World 24/7.
Thank you very much.
Well, there was criticism of Canada's temporary foreign workers visa. In fact, the UN had described the program as a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. Meanwhile, the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will travel to China for talks with top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi, a visit aimed at keeping US-China tensions in check with the upcoming November election fast approaching. Now, from today till the 29th of August, talks in Beijing are scheduled, and Jake Sullivan is expected to discuss issues ranging from Taiwan to bilateral military talks, as well as the US fentanyl crisis and China's support for Russia's defense industry. Meanwhile, with just 15 days left until the scheduled September 10th presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, which has not been called off yet, negotiations between their two campaigns have hit an impasse over whether the candidates' microphones will be muted when it's not their turn to speak. In fact, as far as their fundraising is concerned, though, Kamala Harris's presidential campaign has said that they raked in a whopping $82 million during the Democratic National Convention last week, which is the latest surge of donations in a fundraising tier that began like 5 weeks ago when Joe Biden withdrew from the race. How is Trump doing in comparison? Well, we broke down the details for you. US Vice President Kamala Harris jumped into the presidential race last month, and it's shaking things up in a big way. Her campaign has absolutely soared, raising over 4 times more money than former US President Donald Trump did in July. Democrats are claiming that groups supporting Kamala Harris have already raked in more than $500 million since Joe Biden stepped out of the race. The Biden, now Harris campaign committee raised $516.8 million and Trump's campaign committee raised $268.5 million in total between January 2023 and July 31st, 2024, the most recent date for which Federal Election Commission filings are available. Harris also ended July with far more cash on hand than Trump, with $219.7 million to Trump's $151.3 million, erasing a previous cash advantage the Trump campaign had at the end of June before President Joe Biden dropped out of the race. The Harris campaign raised $204.5 million in July alone, while the Trump campaign raised $47.5 million, shaking up what was previously a more evenly matched cash race, as Harris entered the race on the 21st of July and quickly posted huge fundraising numbers, with the campaign reporting $81 million in donations in the first 24 hours. The fundraising surge reportedly continued into August. Harris and her allies raised a combined $540 million since Biden dropped out, including some $82 million during the Democratic National Convention. Kamala Harris also shook things up by naming Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her vice president pick, and it paid off big time. Her campaign pulled in $36 million in just one day after the announcement. So how much are Harris and Trump spending? Historically, the Biden-Harris campaign has burned through cash faster than Trump. By June, they had spent $189.7 million compared to Trump's $92.1 million. Last month alone, Harris's team shelled out $80.7 million, while Trump spent just $24.3 million. Billionaires, meanwhile, are backing both Trump and Harris. Trump's top donor is Timothy Mellon, who's given a staggering $115 million to support him. Other big names supporting Trump include Kelsey Warren, Diane Hendricks. In fact, Tesla's Elon Musk is also in the mix, but has denied claims of a $45 million monthly donation. On the flip side, Biden's billionaires like Michael Bloomberg and Reid Hoffman have shifted their support to Kamala Harris. She's also got backing from Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings, former Meta COO Sheryl Sandberg, and Melinda French Gates. Plus, over 100 venture capitalists, including Mark Cuban, Vinod Khosla, and Chris Sacca, have publicly supported Kamala Harris. Overall, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have spent $329.5 million this cycle, while Donald Trump has spent $117.2 million. But don't count Trump out. His campaign is stepping up, recently making a $12 million ad buy in key battleground states, the biggest since the primaries. But with both campaigns amassing significant funds and gearing up for a fierce battle, the next few months will be crucial in shaping the final push to Election Day in the US. We're keeping a close eye on how these dynamics will play out as we approach the November showdown. Parmeshwar Bawa for NDTV.